You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing a Ninth Doctor Big Finish audio story called Run. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook, where we're at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who. You can retweet us on X, where we're at SQPN. We're also on TikTok for as long as that's around, and you can find us on YouTube Shorts and other places where we're posting our social media, and we want to hear from you wherever you find us. So let us know that you're out there. This is a Big Finish audio story that came out in 2023 as part of the Travel and Hope series with the Ninth Doctor. And this is the last of the stories in that series. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in this one?
This week, Doctor Who does the gunpowder plot again, only this time it's in outer space. The Ninth Doctor is at the headquarters of the Galactic Federation, where he meets a very young version of our old friend Alpha Centauri. The Doctor tells it to run for office. The reason is that he's seen a future in which evil politician Bellatrix Vega has become the president of the Federation, instituted a dictatorship, and started a war. And since Vega has just assassinated her chief rival for the office of president, Alpha Centauri must stand for office. The Doctor and a Martian ambassador learn that Vega is in league with a mining consortium. They also learn that as soon as she's been certified as president, a bomb under the Federation headquarters will explode and kill everyone. The young Alpha Centauri thus must make a speech in the Senate as a delaying tactic while the Doctor and the Martian senator get rid of the bomb. In the end, Vega is exposed and arrested, and Alpha Centauri makes way for a new president due to its own inexperience. The end.
So, what'd you think of this one, Jimmy?
I enjoyed it. It's a real simple story. It's not very complex, but the nice thing about it to me is that the Ninth Doctor is having fun. And if the Doctor is having fun, that makes it easier for me to have fun. And so it's nice to see Alpha Centauri back. In fact, I actually recognized Alpha Centauri by the voice. And it's a different voice actor than on the TV show, but it's like, wow, that sounds like Alpha Centauri. And it was. So
we should remind people where Alpha Centauri is from.
Yeah. So Alpha Centauri is a character that was introduced back in the Third Doctor's time. Alpha Centauri, which is an it, even though they sometimes use male pronouns for it, is an alien creature. And one of the things Alpha Centauri is most memorable for, other than a high squeaky voice, because they used a female voice actress for the character, is Alpha Centauri looks a little, well, to put it in the words of Sycorax Rock, or Sycorax Rocks, on Peladon, they've been clued Alpha Centauri is slightly rude. And, Alpha Centauri
looks like a body part,
a male body part. Yeah. Yes. Only green. And so it's just, there's an intrinsic humor built into the character that they apparently didn't notice. Alpha Centauri appeared in, I think the Curse of Peladon. There's also another Peladon story that Alpha Centauri may have appeared in, but Alpha Centauri was connected with the Peladon stories of the Third Doctor's time, and they recently in the 12th Doctor's time brought back Alpha Centauri with the original voice actress for a cameo at the end of Empress of Mars.
Right.
So in any event, now the Doctor thus has known Alpha Centauri for a long time. But because of timey-wimey, Alpha Centauri has not yet met the Doctor. This is the first time Alpha Centauri, as a very young political figure, has ever met the Doctor. The Doctor introduces himself as an aide that's been Alpha Centauri has just won election to the Galactic Federation Senate. So Alpha Centauri is a brand new senator. And the doctor passes himself off as an aide who's been assigned to show Alpha Centauri the ropes. But because the doctor doesn't want to complicate the timeline, he never gives his name to Alpha Centauri. So he Alpha Centauri asks, "What's your name?" And the doctor gets past that. And the doctor consistently doesn't mention his name to other people in this, although eventually Vega figures out who he is. But what he's doing there is preventing timeline complications of, oh yeah, how did I meet you and not remember you when you were back at the beginning of my career? If you're the doctor, right. So that's kind of a nice thing, a nice way of avoiding that problem. But anyway, that's who Alpha Centauri is.
I see. Yeah, and then and we don't get obviously get to see the way they look, so it makes it easier for them to avoid that.
Yeah, although if you look on the album artwork for the audio adventure, you do see Alpha Centauri.
Yeah. You also see the Martian senator.
I think the idea with Alpha Centauri was because Alpha Centauri does have limbs.
Yeah.
Coming off the sides of its body. I think the idea may have been something like, let's make an alien that's like an upright centipede.
Yeah.
And it's got its arms hanging down at its sides, but it looks like an upright something else.
Yes, it does. Now, also on the album art is the Martian senator Zargal, who is an ice warrior. So he's got that characteristic hissing, lispy, not lispy, but sort of hissing way of speaking.
Yeah, very sibilant.
Comes across as almost sinister, which is a nice misdirection, because it turns out that Zargal actually is one of the good guys in this. He actually helps stop the plot by Bellatrix Vega.
And that's one of the things that is true of the Ice Warriors in general. They were introduced in the Second Doctor's time as villains, but later on they're not always villains. But they still have that sinister way of speaking that makes you think they're villains.
Right. So I liked the story for the reasons you gave. The thing I didn't like was just the clear connections to contemporary American politics. Oh joy, a fact-bending demagogue politician that we're afraid will create a dictatorship as soon as they're in office. A young, scrappy, female-sounding politician just elected who goes by the initials AC, which the writer I saw in the behind the scenes said was a reference, an homage to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Just like I don't love it when they inject their current political outlook into the story. Yeah, I don't love that. But
they at least now, I think the fact you and I we're listening to this story now, just after the American 2024 election, makes those elements way heavier on our minds. But this actually came out, over 2023. Yeah. Is basically 2 years before the election. And so,
for a year,
well, it depends on when in 2023, because the election was right at the end of 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, it was August.
But in any event, and it was written, over a year before that.
True.
So this wasn't, it's not as direct a commentary on American politics as you might think, listening to it right now. And there are elements that, can be taken as mocking the political situation in Britain and, in other countries. And, if they color it a little bit with, what could be references to American politics, they also obfuscate it enough that, it's not, I didn't take it as a direct commentary, regardless of what the writer may have privately intended or may not have intended. I don't really know beyond the AOC reference. I have to judge it by what made it on screen, so to speak. And what's on screen is not bad.
Yeah. And certainly the gunpowder plot is part of British political history, not American, and that sort of thing. So that's true.
We have never stooped to blowing up our Congress, much as some might want to.
Yeah. So I thought it was funny that the Bellatrix Vega's first opponent that she assassinates is a Slovene. So we get the references to, I don't remember the long name, Raxacoricophallopalatorius, whatever.
Yeah.
So the Slovene, one of my least favorite of all the Doctor Who aliens.
I do like how on New Who they have taken on board the science fiction idea of occasionally having really long names for things.
Yes.
Because we do have polysyllabic names in different cultures here on Earth. And you do get that in science fiction. Like Larry Niven, for example, in his novel Ringworld, he has a character whose formal name is Harlalo-Prillalar. And it's just one name, Harlalo-Prillalar. But it gets shortened by the humans to Prill, just to make it easier. And that's fine. He has a whole culture where they have like 6-syllable names. And that's true of some, like here on Earth, there are cultures like that. And in fact, like in Swahili, it's an agglutinative language, which means you build up words, like you build a whole sentence into just one word by adding various prefixes, suffixes, and infixes.
Like German.
Yeah. Here in more than German. Here in English, which is much more, it's technically a synthetic language, but it's more towards the end of the spectrum that is isolating, where you tend to break units of meaning into separate words. It's not as far on that spectrum as like Chinese is, where Chinese is very much 1-syllable words. I think 2 syllables tops, but there is a spectrum, and it's nice to see that spectrum reflected in science fiction.
A bit of trivia. The longest place name in the United States is right here in Massachusetts. Oh, it's Lake Chargagagadman Chagagaga Chakabanadaga Gungamagagog. Totally butchered it, but that's close. It's the home of the Nipmuc Indians. I think it just means like really big lake.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
I figured it was a Native American term. I noticed years ago I visited. So I grew up here in Arkansas, and with all over Arkansas and Oklahoma and Texas, there are all these place names, especially in Oklahoma, that are from different Native American languages, because Oklahoma used to be Indian territory.
Yeah.
And so I grew up around all these Indian place names, but I visited a friend of mine in New Jersey a number of years ago, and I'm looking at place names as we're driving around, like Mawa. Yeah. And it's like, okay, the Indians who lived here were different than the Indians who lived where I grew up, and I can tell by the place names. They're different. They just sound different.
They are. We have a lot of them around here, but the inaccurate translation of, by the way, the lake is you fish on your side, I'll fish on my side, and nobody fishes in the middle, which is a very loose translation. The more accurate is something along the lines of English knifemen and Nipmuc Indians at the border or neutral fishing place. So
okay.
I like the more inaccurate translation.
Idiomatic translation. Yeah,
exactly. Anyway,
I like the meaning of Arkansas. People of the South Wind.
That's right. So what's Kansas? Are they related?
They are related. Yes.
Okay. I'd assume so, but sometimes it's not actually as clear. Anyway, so you mentioned the Doctor poses as an administrative assistant for the Alpha Centauri, and
he's got to get rid of the real one, because they do have a page assigned to Alpha Centauri who's a robot.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is like, I think Alpha Centauri will do better. He has to evade that. And he's like, I think the Senator will do better with a biological aid. And you can hear him using the sonic on the robot to get it to go away.
Right. I forget what they called it. They had like a clever name for the robot aids, the AI page of some sort. But so, Vega's there's several layers to the plot. There's Vega's aims. She's got a henchman who's got his goal, and then you have this mining consortium which is behind it all, and they've got their own plot going on. So there's multi layers to the plot, and the basic plot is, if there's only, as you mentioned, if there's only one candidate left in the race for whatever reason, then the House or the Senate, they call it the House, but they're senators. It's kind of odd. But
the House, meaning the broader institution, which is the Senate. It's not like here in America where the House of Representatives is different than the Senate.
Yes. So they have to name the final candidate president, which is a very odd way of going things, unless a member of the House steps forward until a legitimate candidate is found. So it's a very complex thing. So you know, if there's only one person left in the race, then they get to be named unless a member of the House stands forward as a sort of a proxy until a regular candidate is found, which is a kind of an odd thing. I mean, I know why they do it.
It makes sense in terms of parliamentary logic. You know, if someone's running unopposed, well, then they get the office. And someone needs to oppose them. And if you need time to find the right person, then you could have someone step in as a proxy. Just step in and say, okay, I'm a candidate now. And then I withdraw as soon as a better candidate comes along.
Right.
And, you know, that makes sense in terms of parliamentary logic.
I guess. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, and that's how we get the most junior member of the entire Senate as the candidate. And it's what's nice here is Alpha Centauri is young, is completely wet behind the ears, is not going to be the great political leader that the Doctor says she's going to be. It is going to be in the future. But I like that you get to see like the roots or the beginnings and the Doctor's confidence in what it will become. And, you know,
and Alpha Centauri, like we get to hear Alpha Centauri. So apparently the custom is whenever a new member joins the Senate, they get to, as the most junior member, they get to make a speech. And that's that's a nice custom. I don't know if it's based on how things work in the House of Parliament or the House of Lords, but it's a reasonable custom. And so we get to hear Alpha Centauri's first speech, and it's a disaster. You know, it's Alpha Centauri's just too nervous and doesn't know what to say and isn't prepared, and it's a disaster. And the Doctor and Alpha Centauri is just heartbroken afterwards, and the Doctor is like, "Oh no, you did great." And Alpha Centauri is like, "Really? No, but first speeches are always terrible, so don't worry about it."
Right. Again, because he knows how that she will become great at it. There's a bit of a sequence.
One thing I liked is we got now. There's apparently a line in this that I missed where Alpha Centauri says that the name Alpha Centauri is common in Alpha Centauri. Yeah. So apparently that's also Alpha Centauri's name, but they also established that Alpha Centauri is from Alpha Centauri. And it appears that with some of the senators, they're named after where they represent. So there's Alpha Centauri, who represents Alpha Centauri. There's another character that Bellatrix Vega kills, who's named Ursa Minor. Right. And so Ursa Minor is another location. There's another senator named Tau Ceti, who's apparently from Tau Ceti, which is another star. And so I took it as kind of like, I wish they hadn't included the line about it being a common name, because otherwise it would make total sense to me. It's kind of like the British custom of referring to some people who have, you know, titles. Not royal, but who have titles by their title. So like if someone is, let's say, Lord Summersile, you would refer to him as Summersile. What do you think of this? Right. And have an Alpha Centauri, Tau Ceti, you know, Ursa Minor. All of those make sense in that context.
Yeah, a lot of Shakespeare, like Gloucester and Manchester, and you know the different York, they're referred to by their title places. I mean, we kind of do that here. The honorable gentleman from Montana. You know,
we just don't call him Montana.
Yeah. there's a bit of a Watergate.
That would be cool. The problem is we have 2 senators from every state. So who gets to be South Carolina when you got 2 of them?
Yeah. Hey, first Massachusetts. That would be from the first congressional district in Massachusetts. So there's a bit of a Watergate break-in, bit of this story where they try to break into this place to get dirt on AC, and they don't find it, obviously, because AC is pure of heart still, not quite a politician yet.
By the way, one thing I like, so one of the nice things about this is the sound design, because it's peppy, it keeps going, and one of the things they do is they periodically cut away to media reports to, summarize what's going on in the broader situation and push the plot forward. And one of the shows that they have on the whatever planet the Galactic Federation is housed on is called Media Shower, where the galactic news just keeps coming. And I like that name, Media Shower. It sounds like meteor shower. So it's got that sci-fi resonance, but it also works as the name of a news show. And so I like the cutaways to the media to kind of summarize and show us here's what the public knows about what's going on. And then we cut away to like private conversations that the Doctor or Bellatrix Vega are having. And so we're seeing the behind the scenes version of the story. And I like that interplay between what's publicly known and what we're hearing going on privately.
Yeah, some of these stories, these audio stories, I have a hard time following, what's going on. But some of them, like this one, are really clear. It's easy to follow. You know what's going on. You understand who everybody is. And I like that about this one.
The pinnacle of that for Big Finish, for me, at least to the ones I've heard, is Live 34, where the whole thing is told through media stories.
Right.
And so they've got to summarize it nicely for the public that's their listening audience. Yeah. But I think that cutting away to the media really helps Doctor Who audio episodes.
It does. And this being a Ninth Doctor story, they always follow the format of the original. So it was one 45-minute or so story.
Well, it's an hour long, but they've actually gotten away from imitating the format of the originals. So what Big Finish now does is they basically produce 1 hour plays.
Yeah.
And you get a whole story in 1 hour, although there are overarching stories that will span a whole set. Right.
And this was, like I mentioned before, the third of the Travel and Hope anthology that, covers, 3 stories, which I guess the frame for this, I mean, it's kind of loosely connected, the stories, but it's more like the people the Doctor encounters along the way, is the journey or whatever.
I like what they did with the pun in the title because, the Ninth Doctor was introduced in Rose on TV where he first meets Rose in the basement of the department store. And basically the first thing he says to her is, "Run for your life, Rose Tyler."
Yes.
And here, and run is a common theme for different doctors, but in particular it was how the Ninth Doctor was introduced. And so I like how in his first audio set, they use that theme, but then they give it a twist as run for office, not run away from danger. It's like there's a moment in this old 1960s TV series, The Prisoner, which is about a former secret agent that is being held against his will in an idyllic village, and he's given a dehumanizing number. He's number 6 in the village. Everyone has a number, no one has a name.
Right.
And but he's a rebel. He doesn't want to be in this village. He wants to break out, and the series is about his repeated attempts to do so. One of my favorites is there's one where they're having an election for who gets to be the new number 2. And the current number 2 is sitting down at a cafe table with number 6, and he's talking up the idea of number 2 running for office. And he says, he's talking about all the political goings on in the village, and he says, "Do you plan to run?" And Patrick McGowan, as the prisoner, says, "First chance I get."
That's good. The businessman, the mining consortium that's behind Vega's campaign, they sound like basically the over the top cliche of Italian American mobsters. They talk like this, so that was funny. The British idea of what American mobsters sound like. And the name Bellatrix Vega. Now Bellatrix is a star. Vega is a star, so that's more star names. But I think it also carries resonance, for this time, because Bellatrix Lestrange was a villainous female character from the Harry Potter series, and so I think listeners of a certain age and reading background will immediately associate that Bellatrix with there's a villainous thing going on here.
Yeah, it also sounds kind of like belladonna, which is a poison.
Yes.
Yeah. There's another nice cross franchise reference later on where when the Doctor and the Martian are going to deal with the bomb, they tell Alpha Centauri that it has to delay in the Senate to keep the candidates from being certified so that the bomb won't go off yet.
Right.
And the Doctor says, start a debate. And Alpha Centauri says, what about? And the Doctor says, it doesn't matter. Anything. The taxation of trade routes.
Because a galactic Senate debating trade routes. That is good. That is good.
There are several nice things on the dialogue level like that in here. One of them is at the beginning when the Doctor is first trying to convince Alpha Centauri to run for office. He initially gets it to agree to serve as a temp candidate until a better one can be found. But then a better one is not going to be found, and he has to convince it at a second stage to, run for the office yourself. You're not just going to withdraw before the election like you thought. But in putting that to Alpha Centauri, he says, do you want the bad news or the worst news? Yep. That's a nice variation on a standard trope. Alpha Centauri says it wants the worst news given that formulation. And the Doctor says the worst news is it's you. Well, what's the bad news? Only you can save the galaxy. Only one person can save the galaxy. And so only one person can save the galaxy. That's the bad news. The worst news is it's you.
Yeah, there's another point where he's talking about how Vega is appealing to people's worst instincts, for voting, while Alpha will appeal to their best instincts. He wants people to, Vega wants people to use their fear, hate, and intolerance, and Alpha appeals to their hope, inclusivity, and understanding. And he says all she needs is people to vote like turkeys voting for Christmas. Or all it needs is people. How would a turkey vote for Christmas? Would vote against Christmas because in the UK, turkeys are a Christmas meal.
Yeah.
There's also another line where Zargal stops Cramp, who's the Vega's operative who set the bomb, stops him from exploding the bomb by collapsing the tunnel on him. And I think it's the Doctor says, defeated by a landslide, which is a nice political term. Those are some good lines.
There's also a nice bit in the middle where Bellatrix Vega has invited the Doctor and Alpha Centauri to a party at her casino.
Yeah.
And I noticed the presidential candidate has a casino. But in any event, it's really clear that she's inviting them over there for sinister purposes. And Alpha Centauri, once they're off the phone, Alpha Centauri says to the Doctor, do you think it's a trap? And the Doctor says, definitely. It'll be interesting to see what kind.
That's the Doctor, all right.
Yeah, as he's seen so many traps, he's got them all classified as which category of trap does this one fit into?
Right. There's a rare trap that'll capture the Doctor. I do like how Alpha has to filibuster, as you mentioned, to delay the vote. but she rises to the occasion, like given her disastrous speech earlier, she rises to the occasion by addressing how people have forgotten how hard won their freedoms are, and don't hand over your freedoms so easily. And I think that is actually a great message in the story is don't forget the liberties that have been fought for and bled for over the decades and centuries.
There's also another little thing that connects to Alpha Centauri's personal arc here, which is, the doctor early on asks, why did you want to get into politics? Because we know Alpha Centauri later is a diplomat.
Right.
And by the end of the episode, they make it clear Alpha Centauri is going to pursue a diplomatic course rather than a political course. But the doctor says, why did you get into politics? And Alpha Centauri says, well, it's always wanted to see this particular regulation changed for something with galactic leisure cruises. And so when the doctor finally says, it doesn't matter what you start your debate about, just start talking. Part of the way Alpha Centauri rises to the occasion is by talking about what it cares about. It cares about this galactic leisure cruise thing. And so it starts talking about that. And we learn that it ends up getting its amendment passed. So, it worked out. And it was nice to see it get that little personal character arc, which also completes its business in politics. So it's now, it's like, oh, well, I achieved what I wanted in politics. I can go be a diplomat now.
Right. Because it wins the presidency, but resigns immediately.
Yeah. Or declines to be sworn in.
Yeah.
Also, we get a little more information about what this leisure cruise thing is, and it segues into the don't give up your rights, because apparently now it says that we non-humanoids have our places on these leisure cruises guaranteed, but it's not actually written in law, and so it could be taken away at any time. And so it wants to get stuff written in law so people's right to take leisure cruises, regardless of what kind of organism they are, will be ensured. And that leads to the don't give up your freedoms thing, because they could be taken away if they're not written down, which we learned here in America we even passed the Bill of Rights to make sure that the government didn't start grabbing functions that were not assigned in the Constitution. And even the Bill of Rights didn't ultimately solve the situation. But but that's how it is. You got to take all the protections you can.
Right. Do not trade your liberty. Was it he who would trade his liberty for a little wealth?
Pottage?
Yeah, I figured there's a Benjamin Franklin quote about trading liberty for something else and ending up with neither. So I knew it. I just knocked out my head. Anything else on this one, Jimmy? Any other thoughts?
Nope. It's pretty basic. It's pretty straightforward. Oh, one thing that I liked was, since I've seen I think you'll get a little more out of the story if you've seen the original Peladon stories with John Pertwee as the doctor. Yep. Because not only will you know what Alpha Centauri looks like, but they've got a mess of other weird-looking aliens, frankly, goofy-looking aliens in those shows. And having those goofy-looking alien designs in your mind as you're listening to everything going on in this story, I think, enhances the listening experience. To have this, you're imagining this chaos of goofy-looking aliens doing a galactic senate.
As goofy as Doctor Who's costumes sometimes were, the makeup, and is clearly someone in an outfit. It looked,
or it's clearly a puppet,
right? But I give him credit, because at least it wasn't just bumpy-headed humans. Just nice, easy, fake prosthetic on the forehead and be done with it, like Star Trek did long after they should have been doing more. But so I give him credit for that. All right, so that'll, I think, do it for our discussion of Run. Before we go, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Mike B, Ann S, Zach M, Ron S, and St. Michael Minion. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to know what you thought of this Ninth Doctor Big Finish story called Run. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com, the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can also watch The Secrets of Doctor Who on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the first 3 episodes of the Second Doctor's final story, The War Games. That's episodes 1 to 3. So until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Tom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, democracy is a delicate flower, Doctor.